All right, so today's piece is Tierkreis by Stockhausen. This is a series of short repeating melodies that were originally written for music boxes, and there's one that corresponds to each sign of the zodiac. Um, you can see here on the title page there's a range given for each of them and a main pitch, I suppose. And also a duration. So most of them, a single repetition is like around 30 seconds. Um, and then the ranges are usually around, I would say, like less than 3 octaves, sort of in the treble clef. So you can imagine this is something that if you have like a 3 octave or 4 octave toy piano or a celesta or anything like that, it'll fit onto that range. Um, This score, I believe, is for piano. I could be wrong. It also exists in a number of other versions, but we'll get to that in a second. So this piece also exists in many other versions that include piano. So, for example, I have the score here for clarinet and piano, and it has all kinds of instructions on how the two performers are to interact and perform. Like there's some staging, so it's a little bit theatrical. Um, And yeah, you can see it's also in the composer's hand, and it's differs significantly from this version. So this piece is a little bit unlike Stockhausen's other work. It's sort of from the 70s, so it's not like it's his late period or anything, but it's sort of like cheerful, empty-headed little tunes, right? It's purposefully simple. You have to remember it's for like music box, um, right? Like something like this. So the medium is the point. It's the only thing that the composer has control of really is like pitch and rhythm. So that's what the focus of the piece really is. And it's like the duration is limited with that type of medium. So you have like 30 seconds to say something. Uh, they're also character pieces. They're based on tone rows, so they're serial, but they're not necessarily 12-tone serial pieces. Some of them are 14-note rows, um, and each one is centered on a chromatic pitch. So instead of like a tonality, they have like a central pitch kind of thing. Um, you can see that in the pre, like in the title page here, like Sagittarius, which would be my sign, the central pitch is C sharp, right? But the range is from E3 all the way up to D sharp 6, right? So the central pitch is actually quite close to the top in that one. Stockhausen sign is Leo, so if we look down here at Leo, the central pitch is still pretty high in the range. It's the A5, and then the range itself is quite high. It's like A3 to E6. There's some serial organization of rhythm. I think that's unsurprising that Stockhausen would do that. And here we get to all the versions. So there are vocal versions for 5 different voices, ranging high soprano to high tenor. Uh, there's a version for chamber orchestra, 1977, a version for clarinet and piano, which I have here. This is 1981. Trio version for clarinet, flute, and trumpet slash piano. That's the 83 version. There's a 2003 version for soprano or tenor with chording instrument. And there are two orchestra versions, each with only 5 of the 12 melodies. These are both written in 2007. The last one was finished the night before Stockhausen died, actually. And he was planning to do the remaining two, Cancer and Leo, for orchestra. Like he was going to orchestrate those in January of 2008, but he passed away before then. So I guess it's sort of like an unfinished version. And here we have a discography. This might be kind of interesting. By the way, this is like some of the most popular music that Stockhausen ever wrote. Um, I think here there's a bell tower in Cologne. I believe it's their city hall, which since after Stockhausen died has been playing one of the Tierkreis melodies daily. So it's like very in the popular um, consciousness, especially in Germany. Yeah, so there's a version for cello and organ. I'm just gonna put there's a recording of the cello and organ version. I'm gonna put the title of the album up here. Uh, Version for clarinet and bass clarinet recorded. Violin solo version recorded. Recorder ensemble. Two lute version. Uh, Version for solo double bass. Recording of guitar and electric guitar. This is only of melodies 3, 4, 6, 7, and 11, which would be Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Leo, and Sagittarius. 6 of the melodies on another solo violin recording by Gidon Kremer. This is Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Cancer, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius again. There's a trombone solo recording. 6 of the melodies in the historical Russian archives, also violin solo. There's a solo guitar version of Aquarius, Leo, and Libra here. And then there's a version for. So there's another violin solo recording. That seems to be a very popular way to do them, is violin solo. Finally, we get clarinet and piano recording. Now we have a ad hoc ensemble of clarinet, saxophone, guitar, balalaika, etc. 2 of the melodies, just Capricorn and Leo, are on that recording. The piano solo version can be heard here. And there's another mixed sextet version that can be heard on this recording from 2013. Version for 2 basses, I guess, on this recording. Trumpet and piano, solo organ, flutes and cymbalum, bassoon and piano, so 3 different clarinets, voice, melodica, percussion, and more. Recorder and guitar. 6 of the melodies on percussion ensemble: Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Taurus, Libra, Leo. The trio version. This is an official Stockhausen ensemble that I mentioned earlier. Then unaccompanied piccolo version for bass, clarinet, trombone, accordion, drums, cello, double bass. I don't know how legit that one is. Bass, clarinet, and piano. Solo oboe. No, that's another mixed ensemble one. We have an orchestra recording here. Then a version for clarinet and piano here. A music boxes recording. Recording of the clarinet and piano. Recording of violin with different accompaniments. This one is I think it's another percussion ensemble one. Tenor with synthesizer. This one it's unclear. Maybe it is like historical instruments. There's a marimba and vibes and piano recording, and then a soprano and piano recording. So yeah, I'm pulling this discography off of Wikipedia, so there may be some errors in that list, but hopefully that gives you a sense of the different versions. So unlike a lot of Stockhausen's other work, which is very specific to the medium, this one is just can be for almost anything because it's really only the pitches and rhythms that matter. You can do solo versions, I guess, because it's very much just melody and accompaniment. So you can perform either just the melody and call it a performance, or you can perform both, right? So today we're just looking at the piano one because we're on the piano series. I should also mention this is something that influenced the New Simplicity movement, which is a German classical music movement in the 1970s, early 80s. Just to list some of the composers associated with it, we've only covered one of them on the channel, Wolfgang Rimm. Um, but other composers include Deltev Müller-Siemens, Wolfgang von Schweinitz, Ulrich Strauss, Manfred Trohan, Hans-Jürgen von Boss, Hans Christian von Dadelsen, and I think Rim is the only one of this group who has seen some reasonable success. I mean, the piece of his we looked at was quite complicated, but when we looked into it further, it was like very intuitively written and was all about like expressing something directly to elicit certain emotions. Um, You could expand this school to include a lot of other composers in other countries. This is not like the strict use of the term New Simplicity, but you could think of the Cologne School, which included Walter Zimmerman, Peter Eötvös, Messias Magwasha, Clarence Barlow, who we've talked about on the channel in the Barak Perelman episode. Um, Also, we've seen names like Christopher Fox come up, and uh, yeah, you could think about like how this is maybe synonymously happening at the same time as the sacred minimalists are making stuff. So this is in like Soviet countries, like countries that were then Soviet, but like leaving the Soviet Union. So Gurecki, Pärt, Tavener. But the point I'm trying to make is the German New Simplicity is very much inspired by Stockhausen and specifically this group of pieces. Um, Whereas other movements that were trending in a similar way had different points of inspiration and different angles of looking at it. So, yeah, if you want to listen to these with me today, link to the recording is in the video description. And I'll see you in about 12 minutes. I think most people perform a couple repetitions of each one, so it takes time. Um, yeah, I'll let you know what I think. I don't think I've ever listened to these, so it'll be an interesting window into a whole 1970s kind of world. Okay, yeah. So I think this version, just in the high register of the piano, is really expressive. It gives the performer a lot of control over how loud and the pacing of things. You know what I mean? Like the dynamics, tempo, all that stuff is very controlled, but it still gives you that music box quality, which I think is kind of essential to the concept of the piece. Yeah, it's also interesting to see some elements of the composition in the score, like some of the movements don't have bar lines, which makes me realize that, as a music box, it's like there is no beginning and end, and there are no bar lines really. So Stockhausen had to decide where the bar lines fell, which I think is kind of interesting. It says a lot about how he thinks about the phrasing of the piece. Also, Stockhausen had to decide where each movement ended, right? And where it began. So a lot of them begin with very like distinctive things, right? Like the Sagittarius begins with this descending chromatic thing. So does the Scorpio. It's like very distinctive, and a lot of them end on a long chord, which sounds very final. Most of them start and end with the same central note, you could say, in the melody. So uh, the central pitch or whatever is like seems to be in the top voice. It's always in the melody, and then all of the accompanimental stuff is kind of composed around that um, sound world that the melody establishes. I think Leo is by far the most pleasant to listen to. It's very simple, I'm not surprised by that because it is Stockhausen's own sign. Um, I guess other ones I liked Taurus and I liked Scorpio. Um, Actually, the last three were all pretty good. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn all worked really well back to back. I think I just like Taurus because I like going from Aries to Taurus. It's like goes from this very active, like contrapuntal thing to something more simple and focused on harmony. So that's a nice moment. Um, yeah, I guess just in my closing remarks here, I want to say that these pieces are a bit of a rabbit hole, and I didn't really know what I was getting into when I started pulling up Wikipedia today and researching. So if there's anything you know about this stuff that I didn't cover, please comment and supplement with some discussion because I think this is like a very important piece in Stockhausen's output, and clearly it has, um, he milked it for a lot of money, and a lot of people like playing them, and yeah, like for I have no idea if all these different versions are Stockhausen's own or if just people started playing them on different instruments and recording them. So yeah, any information on that would be great. It's fair enough that I cover it in the piano series, but maybe it could have been better saved for my, like, I have a bunch of scores for variable instrumentation as well. And that's basically what this is. But yeah, I made a similar mistake in the orchestra series when I had like in C featured, which famously is performed by orchestras, but it's like definitely just variable instrumentation, and the most seminal recording is just a chamber ensemble. So, uh, you know, take with that what you will. And I think the score tomorrow is a little bit more clearly for piano. Yeah, it's a short piece by Sofia Gubaidulina, and we're going to see a lot more of her pieces as we go into the 70s and 60s. Um, so, yeah.